So welcome everybody to our Saturday morning webinar. This is Judy Feldhausen, and I'm joined today with Bob Wischmeier.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, and Bob says that it is unusual weather where he is today.
Yeah, it's the darndest thing. We have this heavy fog, and it's just freezing onto all the bushes and the trees, so they're all pure white and frosty. It's pretty, but it's cold and chilly.
Yeah, and so we want to make sure there's no fog here today in our webinar series. We are continuing our series with leadership development, and this is our fifth in the series. We're studying actually the book by John Maxwell, which is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And we've been talking about this book for a while now, doing these trainings about once a month for his 21 chapters. And what really touched us with this book in our 21-day challenge call is not only how the lessons apply to situations in our business, but how to use them, not only with our teams, but our families and our communities. And today we're going to actually talk about the law of addition. And this specific law, I think, really hit home for me, and I think even more for you, Bob. Isn't that right?
Yeah. I've really enjoyed this particular chapter. But the book overall has really been the best leadership book I've read.
It really is. And today we're actually talking about the law of addition, and it's really about adding value by serving others. And this is something I know, Bob, you do on a daily basis. I do it sometimes. I think I try, but you are really a master of serving other people. To me, you're my idol in this area. And so, I really know that you add so much value to other people's lives, and what you do, every day. You just absolutely live this.
Well, you're too kind. Thanks, Judy. That's very sweet of you to say that. And, I think sometimes I think we find ourselves when we serve others. I think that's an important principle or concept to remember. But I was looking at this particular slide that you put up. I have a son who's an officer in the United States Army, and I know all the stuff that he does. We gave him a really good Christian name. His name is Hiram Spencer Wischmeier, but he's been going by the name of Spud his entire life. His commanding officer called him a little while ago, and they had this very strange phone conversation, and his commanding officer said to him, Lieutenant Wischmeier, it's my understanding that you have another name that you go by. And he said, yes, sir. And he said, is it true people call you Spud? And he said, yes, sir. And he said, and you're all right with that? And he said, yes, sir. Okay. And he hung up, just playing, just messing with my son. But it was really a cool leadership, coming from the commanding officer to a first lieutenant, just kind of messing with him, but having fun with him too. So, it was fun. Well, let's roll that slide to the next picture, if you don't mind, Judy. I want to talk a little bit this morning about the co-founder of Costco Corporation, Jim Sinegal. A very, very interesting guy. He's not like most CEOs. He just isn't. As in his office, he has folding chairs and folding tables. He doesn't have a fancy office at all. When somebody comes to see him, they don't come into his office. He goes down into the waiting area down below in their corporate offices to chat with people. He doesn't make a big salary. He's one of the bottom 10% CEO salaries in the entire industry. Really, really interesting. You know, he didn't go to an Ivy League school. He's not a lawyer. He started out working down in San Diego for FedMart and moving mattresses around. But he enjoyed what he was doing there and became really close friends with Saul Price, Saul Price ended up, along with Senegal, creating Price Club. And then Jim Senegal and another guy, using kind of that same formula, created Costco Wholesale. And then, of course, they merged with Price Club a few years later. But he's just the most interesting guy. And I've had a chance to be there. My son Ben's wife, my daughter-in-law Alice, and her parents both work for Costco Corporation in Kirkland, Washington. And I had a chance to go to their Costco corporate headquarters. Lovely building, but not, you know, it's not fancy. It's just nice and clean. And you know, you go in, everybody's nice, everybody's happy, and they've got a big, you can go in and eat, and it's really, really a pleasant place to go. So, you know, he had this Senegal had this basic formula for success, kind of keeping a limited number of items, you know, high volume sales, keeping costs as low as you could, don't advertise, you know, that kind of stuff. But the thing that has separated him from every other CEO in that kind of an industry is the way that he treats his employees. He pays his people very well. He's got some of the best health insurance in the entire industry. The people at Costco make 42% more than other people do in that same industry, 42% more. He's got the lowest employee turnaround rate in all of retailing. And it has, in large part, it has to do with the way that he treats his people. He goes to every single Costco store during the course of the year, and there are a lot of them. My daughter-in-law's mom was telling me about what it's like to meet him, to talk to him, how friendly and nice and just down home he is. You know, wherever he goes, he wears a name tag just like all the other employees. He knows people by their name. It's just really interesting. Maxwell made an interesting comment. I wanted to read it. He says it's improper for one person to take credit when it takes so many people to build a successful organization. Oh, actually, that's Jim Senegal who said that. When you try to be top dog, you don't create loyalty. If you can't give credit and take blame, you'll drown in your inability to inspire. Very interesting quote, I thought. And he's just good. He just treats his people well, and that's what's really separated him from the competition.
That's so true, Bob. And we have to remember when we are working with our teams as synergy distributors that we need to add that value and treat our team members the same way.
We do. And,
and it's a little tricky because they don't really work for us, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, these are independent synergy businesses. That's exactly right. One more last just shouting part with regard to Jim Senegal. I wanted to read a little sentence here. Nell Minow, who's an expert on corporate governance, remarked, "I would love to clone him. Of the 2,000 companies in our database, he has the single shortest CEO employment contract. It's less than a page long." As a CEO of this giant corporation, it says it's the only one which specifically says he can be terminated for a cause. It's written right into his own contract, less than a page long. Well, that's just great leadership. Just great leadership. Let's slip to the next slide, Judy, on Do the Math. I thought that this was interesting. In this particular chapter, John Maxwell says, "I believe the bottom line in leadership isn't how far we advance ourselves, but how far we advance others. That is achieved by serving others and adding value to their lives. There's one critical question: are you making things better for the people who follow you? I thought how interesting that was. He says that 90% of all people who do add value to others do so intentionally. Go ahead and flip to the next slide, Judy. That when people, leaders who help other people, do it intentionally. And as I was thinking about this when I was reading the book, I thought about, for example, some of the Nobel Prize winners through the years, like Albert Schweitzer or Mother Teresa or Martin Luther King. Those folks did not set out in their lives with a goal of receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. Their desire, the bottom line desire, was to engage in noble service to their fellow human beings. That's the motivation for them, and not what were they going to get out of it, but how could they help other people. This interesting quote coming up on this next slide, Judy. Go ahead and forward the next couple of slides so we can take a look at them. And
yeah, I really like this quote, Bob. I'm sorry, you broke up there. Could you repeat what you said just now?
This one? Sorry, it says my internet connection's unstable. Yeah, but I'm having a little bit of a problem with my internet. Are we still having a problem?
It's a little better now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have slow internet here. Sorry.
Yeah, it's because you're in a fog.
It's the fog.
Let me read this quote. I really like this quote by Albert Schweitzer. It says, "Seek always to do some good somewhere. Every man has to seek in his own way to realize his true worth. You must give some time to your fellow man. For remember, you don't live in a world all your own. Your brothers are here too." Are you still there, Bob?
It's a beautiful quote, isn't it?
Yes.
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can now.
Yeah. You don't live in a world all by your own, do you? We're not islands unto ourselves. We have others here with us. And so, yeah, we add value by taking care of, helping, and serving one another. I think that's extremely important to remember. There's another quote here by Albert Einstein. I think you have that on the next slide, too. Let's take a look at that one as well.
Yes, this is another great quote. "Only a life lived in the service of others is worth living," by Albert Einstein. And I didn't know he was that type of person. I thought he was more of an island.
No, I didn't either. Kind of just a brainiac over in the corner. Feed him under the door. Well, right. It's interesting that there's a quote in this book that says, "The best place for a leader isn't always the top position. It isn't the most prominent or powerful place. It's the place where he or she can serve the best and add the most value to other people." And as I was reading that quote in the book, I thought about my stepdad, Barney. Barney raised us. He was in the military. After my parents divorced, Mom had remarried. He was teaching naval history at the University of Idaho, and then we ended up traveling all over with him. He was when he retired from the Navy, he was senior chief on the USS Providence, and that's the flagship for the fleet. That's the ship that the admiral is on. And I remember one time talking to I don't know, some officer there on the ship, who made the comment that the chiefs run the Navy. They're not at the top of the list. They're not the most prominent. They're not the highest ranked individual on those ships. But it's the chiefs that run the Navy. And again, it's that whole concept that you don't have to be at the top to be serving others well, to make sure things happen well. It's where you are, in the position that you're in life, or in business, or in the military, whatever it is, where you can do the most good and help people move things forward. That's where the value is.
Yes, and it's really knowing
So
what.
Judy, let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Got a little lag here.
No, that's okay. That's okay. But when we were talking about, you know, being able to do what we do best, you know, that's one of the things that I really like about Synergy and our leadership team, and we all take responsibility for the things that we do best. And as a leader, we need to recognize on our team really what is that person best at, and where can we utilize their talents and you know, what they are dreaming about. How will it best serve them in their career, and to add value that way. I know I've been in networking organizations before where it was all about the leader and what the leader demanded of you on a daily basis. And I did not enjoy my time with that leader. I always had this like knot in my stomach when I saw that he was calling, because I know that he was going to demand something of me that I was not really willing to give. And so having leadership that is looking at others' strengths and being to add value to them is such a more pleasant way. I mean, I hope that when I call people on my team that they don't see my name and go, oh my gosh, it's her again. That they, you know, they feel that I am there to help them.
Well, I think they do. I think they're glad when you call them. I'm sure that. Yeah, it's interesting. When I very first started with Synergy Worldwide, I was working with a guy that, you know, when he called, I had that same response. I had kind of a knot in my stomach almost all the time. He wasn't mean to me. It's just that he probably sucked more life out of me than I had to give, and I didn't like that. And I dealt with it for quite a while, but finally I just couldn't do it any longer. And that's kind of how things work, I think. I wanted to talk, anyway, did you have anything else you wanted to add about that before we move on?
No, I really like about what John does here about, so now that we know that we want to add value and change other people's lives, really, how do we do that?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And one of the things I wanted to share with regard to that, when we truly value others, is a quote by a guy named Daryl Hartley Leonard. I don't know who that is, but he says, when a person moves into a position of authority, he or she gives up the right to abuse people. Think about that for a minute. When a person moves into a position of authority, he or she gives up the right to abuse people. That's an interesting comment. Effective leaders go beyond not harming others. They intentionally help others. So it's not just a matter of, you know, not harming people, but you're intentionally looking to help others. To do that, they have to value people and demonstrate that they care in such a way that their followers know it. It's just so true. So true. What was? Oh, I wanted to share a thought that John Maxwell says. He says that leaders should be open, trusting, caring, offering their help, willing to be vulnerable. Leaders who add value by serving believe in their people before the people believe in them, and serve others before they're being served. So it's just a great leadership concept to understand that the people who you're working with are important, and you're reaching out to them. Something I think that's key to that is listening to people, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here when we get to the know and relate to what others value. But when you truly value other people, you learn about them.
And Bob, Tammy's got her hand up. Tammy, can you unmute yourself? Did you have a question or a comment?
I'm sorry, I didn't have a question. How do I turn off the hand signal?
You just put your hand down, for heaven's sake.
I'm on my cell phone, so I'm looking for the hand up.
Oh, I don't know where it is on your cell phone.
Yeah, well, you could just ignore that.
I'll just ignore your hand.
And she's driving in traffic, no doubt. Yeah.
No, I'm sitting on my couch.
I'm just teasing you.
I'll let you guys get back.
So how do we make ourselves more valuable to others? You want to take a shot at that, Judy? How do you make yourself more valuable to others?
Well, one of the easy ways, I think, is to ask them. Just, what do you need from me? How can I help you? What is next for you that I can support you with? That to me is about the simplest way to really let people know that you are willing to help, and also to walk alongside them through their journey. That to me also is very important, to not let people go off alone, but to help them get through the tough times and be a support to them.
Some people are really easy to love. Some people are easy to want to spend time with, but not everyone is. And that's where good leadership really comes into play, because not everyone's fun to be around or to be with. And but good leaders, even though they may recognize that, still reach out, find time, make time for other people.
Well, and I know, Bob, one thing you do is that I know is you answer your phone all the time. You've answered your phone like hanging on the side of a barn.
I have. Hanging on the rafters.
Yeah. Just being that availability goes a long way to make people feel important and make them feel that they are valuable.
Another I think really important. Gosh, my phone's over here dinging. We have skills. And I think that's, using those skills to help other people is important too. I spent years and years, I owned a butcher shop and did big game processing, things that are a little, probably don't relate with most of the people on the webinar this morning, but it's a skill level that I have that I've used to help other people with for years. I got a call from some folks just a couple of days ago, and this friend of mine, Dan Taff, had shot an elk in a muzzle-loading, black powder muzzle-loading hunt, special hunt, and he'd shot an elk. And I got a text message from his wife, Bob, Danny shot his elk. Any chance you could help him cut it up? And I was tired. I've been working 2 jobs and just been busy as could be. But here was an opportunity to use the skill that I have to help a friend. When I got off my second job, I drove over to their place and we visited for a long time, just talked, and then we cut that elk up together. So it's a skill. You get those kinds of skills through study, through practice, etc. One of the things that John Maxwell states here is if you possess wisdom, you gained it by intentionally evaluating the experiences you've had. That's extremely important to bear in mind, that wisdom, a lot of wisdom comes from intentionally looking back at the places we've been in life and learning from them. The more intentional you've been in growing personally, the more you have to offer. The more you continue to pursue personal growth, the more you will continue to have to offer. So becoming and always being both a master student and a master teacher is extremely important. We learn, we grow, and that makes ourselves more valuable to others as we go forward. That makes sense, Judy?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm just kind of trying to decide what I want to talk about here. There's just way too much information in this chapter to get through all of it. know and relate to what others value. Again, you come back to that need to listen to what people have to say. I had a quote I wanted to share. Where in the world is my quote? Oh, it's right here. It's John says, inexperienced leaders are quick to lead before knowing anything about the people they intend to lead. But mature leaders listen, learn, and then lead. I thought that was just such a brilliant thought. Listen to people's stories. Find out about their hopes and dreams. Become acquainted with their aspirations. Pay attention to people's emotions, those kinds of things. I think we all understand that anyway, but I thought that I wanted to share that with you this morning. What do you think, Judy?
Well, and that is so true. And when we talk about our business and talk to potential clients and customers, we know that pro-arginine is going to help. We know that the purifying system is going to help, whatever their challenges are, right? I mean, that's innate to distributors, but it may not be what the client needs at the time. He may not be ready to hear it. It may not be important to him, and we really have to be able to relate to them and where they are and know what is of value to them. I talked to somebody yesterday. I was getting my toes done, and next to me was a girl that I've known for probably 20 years, on and off through business. She was a photographer. She's now retired, and she started talking about the cancer that she has come through and survived, but now she has neuropathy. And so we started talking about that, and she's talking about how she's dealing with it. And through the conversation and through my questioning and her answers, I know that pro-arginine was not something that she was willing to even take a look at. She just had no use for supplementation, for powders, potions, and lotions. She really believed in what her doctor was telling her. And so, our conversation then turned to, are you ready for Christmas? Because it was going to go nowhere business-wise, but we talked about what she valued and not what, I wanted to sell, so to speak. We really have to be cognizant of our customers or potential customers and people that we talk to.
Right, including just listening.
Absolutely.
No, that's right. Well, thank you for sharing that thought. And the last thing that John is talking about here, doing things that God values, we all have our personal faith, I guess, if you will, in the Lord. But one of the things that John mentions here is that God desires us to not only treat people with respect, but also to actively reach out to them and to serve them. And he quoted some scripture in relationship to that. When saw we thee hungry and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? That kind of beautiful scripture from the New Testament. And it's true, that we do have a responsibility, I think, I really believe, to look out for one another and to help one another. So, but moving along, we're almost out of time, Judy. Flip to that next. It's not just about the chicken. You got that next slide?
Yeah.
Okay. So what in the world is this all about? I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts here about this particular slide because it's really, really interesting to me. Dan Cathy's the president of Chick-fil-A, and he's just such an interesting guy. When John Maxwell moved his organization to Atlanta back in '97, he became really close friends with Dan Cathy and his dad, Truett Cathy. They helped John Maxwell a great deal. So he spent a lot of time with them and their whole organization. They have this attitude of service that pervades everything that they do. And John Maxwell said that this Chick-fil-A is one of the companies that he most greatly admires and respects. And he talks about their leadership, what they do, the kind of leadership that they have, their dedication to service and adding value to their employees and to their customers, because they treat their employees so well and they're completely service-oriented. Kathy from Chick-fil-A one time made this comment that they're teaching, Dan Cathy and his organization teach their employees about etiquette, right? And he said there's evidence that the words etiquette and fast food have never been mentioned in the same sentence before, which is hilarious. But it made me think. I was down in Houston a couple of years ago with my little grandkids. My son and daughter-in-law had gone on a trip, and we were attending the kids. And they had made arrangements at the Chick-fil-A in Houston there, by where they lived. On Valentine's Day, they have a special Valentine's Day where they put white tablecloths on the table. You call in, get everything set up. There's flowers on the table. You come in and sit down. They treat you like royalty, the employees do. It's the darndest thing. It's in a fast food restaurant, and everyone in there is being treated like royalty. It's the coolest thing. One of the things that Dan does is called the Leadership Relationship Development Tool. So I'm going to read this to you. It's just brief, but it's interesting. And this is Dan Cathy, and he's the CEO of Chick-fil-A. So he's standing in front of a group of people, right? He's doing a leadership training, and he holds up this 9-inch, 100% horsehair shoe brush, okay? He says, this is an industrial strength shoe brush. It's the best you can get from the Johnston & Murphy Shoe Company. I'm going to present all of these, one to each of you here. And John, he's speaking to John Maxwell, why don't you come over here just for a moment. I made a commitment I'd never give one of these leadership relationship development tools, meaning the horsehair brush, to anybody without first showing you how to use it. So John, step up here so they can see you. And I'm going to challenge you to watch closely. This really has substance and real meaning when it's practiced with people that you really know, that you really work with a lot. So if you let me show you how this happens, I'll tell you how it works. So John Maxwell sat down, and Dan Cathy, CEO of Chick-fil-A, knelt down at his feet and began cleaning my shoes with a brush. He says, now this works whether the person's got tennis shoes, Nike, Reeboks. It'll work on any type of shoe. So don't worry about what kind of shoes the person has on. You don't say anything. That's one of the real keys here. And you're in no big hurry as you do this. Then when you're done, you give them a big hug. So at that point, of course, he stood up, and John Maxwell stood up. And this is in front of a bunch of people. He just cleaned John Maxwell's shoes with a shoe brush. Gave him a big hug, gave him the shoe brush. And that was the end of that. Such a big part of good leadership is having no unresolved relationship conflict with other people. Serving others who follow you really purifies your motives and helps you gain perspective. It's beautiful counsel, you guys. I really enjoyed reading this about Dan Cathy and Chick-fil-A and how they do their leadership, how they serve one another. I thought it was beautiful.
It's so true, Bob. Every experience I've ever had at a Chick-fil-A, they've always been polite. And I know the owners of our local Chick-fil-A here, and they are absolutely such giving people. I did a presentation here locally. It was a national webinar, and I did it here locally, and they donated all the food, both breakfast and lunch, for this presentation for a group of leaders. And I just asked, could you? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. I support my community, and I support the leaders in my community, and you have your food, which is amazing to me.
Well, it is. The bottom line, I think, here is that leadership flows from the top down. And I think everyone on this call, on this webinar, needs to understand that and realize that leadership flows from the top down. We have a responsibility as synergy distributors when we create a team to look out for that team, to listen to them, to help them, to do anything within our power. We don't have to go overboard, but we do need to be mindful of the people that we're working with and look out for them, take care of them. And it pays in spades, it really does. The last slide that we have here is interesting. Judy's going to read it to you.
Absolutely, and this is also Benjamin Franklin. Interesting when I thought about this quotation and the depth of this quotation. There's such a story here. The handshake of the host affects the taste of the roast.
The attitude of the leader certainly affects the atmosphere, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. And I don't know if you've ever been to a party in someone's home that when they come to the door and they're harried and scattered and unsure of themselves, it makes you feel that way also and uncomfortable. But when you are invited into into a home or an office or a presentation, and that person is confident and welcoming and understanding, it sets you at ease, and it just sets you up for a great time right from the beginning.
We all have people in our lives who we tend to think that we're their favorite person, right? That they're people in our lives who, when they talk to us, we just get this sense that we're really the only person in the world that matters to that individual. Of course, it's not true, but that's a gift. That's good leadership. When someone can, when you shake hands with someone and they look you right in the eye, and you feel like you are the only person on earth they care about in that moment, that's a big deal. It doesn't come naturally to all of us. But it's a powerful leadership thing to learn. And so, at the end of the day, the law of addition, all of these things add up. It's not just a matter of making sales. It's the relationships and the friendships that you form in the process of your business that really, really add value at the end of the day. Judy, thanks for helping me with this.
It's my pleasure, Bob. Thank you for being of such service to your community and to us here at Synergy, because I know that without you and what you do for the Global Health Makeover team, we would not be as close as we are. And I know behind the scenes, there's a lot that goes on that we don't see. And on the surface, everything looks smooth and wonderful. And that's one of the things a good leader does. So thank you for being that good leader.
You're welcome. Thanks for your kind words. Do you have any questions, anybody? Any thoughts you want to share?
Bob and Judy, thank you for sharing what you did. I didn't know your complete presentation, so when I picked out the slide for yesterday's email to send out, I had 1 + 1 = 3. Bob, I saw you had 1 + 1 = 2 in your presentation. And the slide that I had used for the newsletter really emphasizes what you two have told us about, is that when we invest in other people, the return is more than just 1 + 1. The return is 1 + 1 = 3 or more, because you are helping those people that you've invested in by service to be able to be more productive than what they would be without that. So I appreciate what you've shared with us this morning.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, Dan.
All righty. We're good.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. And, however you do your addition, just continue to add value to lives of the others, and you will get amazing returns. So everyone, just have a great week, and we'll see you next week.